How did we get to this moment? I think is a key question from the historical point of view. As a generation coming up in the 60s, as a teenager in the 60s, then there was a particular formation that came from the Vietnam War, that came from the whole situation with liberation movements in the Third World. That was what was once called the Third World. And for us living in the U.S., how did we relate to both within the U.S. and then outside the U.S. in terms of then being part of the movement or growing into the movement in a general sense? Now, we knew that it was a movement to change injustices, but we did not have a world view, or we were beginning to develop a world view of what that movement was or defined. So the long sort of trajectory over 40, almost 45 years of organizing, then has been a lifetime commitment, and that was very particular to that generation, to our generation, sort of the revolution generation or the counter culture revolution that we were a part of, and that was very clear in our minds. As we organized, one of the things that we did was, look at liberation movements as an example, because it was about not just reforming the system, but changing the system. And there was a whole number of avenues by which we could change the system. Some people wanted to do it through armed struggle. Some other people wanted to do it through electoral politics. They thought about how each other's methodology or direction was the incorrect. So there was a lot of debate about what was correct and what was not correct. Who's to say? History kind of lets us see, looking backwards, in hindsight. And I think one of the things that we had as a liberation movement was that what vehicle did we see that would take us to liberation? And so as a liberation movement, we saw sort of forming a political party that would just grow and grow and grow and be so advanced and so a vanguard that it would be at the very head of the change that would take place. They would take power, and after taking power would set up a republic, a new government with social justice. That seemed very simplistic, and it really looks back at being very simplistic, because none of us could even run a radio station, or how we're going to run a whole government or society. It was crazy. So that challenged us as how do we begin to develop the methodology? And so it became a quest for that methodology that would really get us to that point of liberation. That is still the same. When we started, we pulled the organization, and it was usually, if I can show you, one leader, and the one leader was supposed to be the symbolic leader that, I guess, never slept, never rested, always had the strength to continue and to be the example, and thus I call it pulling the train of the movement. So if that leader was pulling the movement at all times, then there was advancement, there was movement forward. And so what happened if they killed that leader, or they jailed that leader, and how many movements have come down and failed because the leader was assassinated or jailed or quit or sold out? There were so many examples that we went through.